Hi everybody, Mona Austin here with a review and commentary on The Real Housewives of Potomac Season 2, Episode 6. Now, this is my guilty pleasure. I watch this one because I want to, not just for analysis purposes. And part of the reason for that is because it's in our region. So I feel a little close to it, like I know a little bit more about it than I do the other cities in the Housewives franchise. And so I want to begin by sort of doing a lay of the land for those of you who are not on the East Coast. And the reason why I want to do this is because I've been looking at various reviews, and it looks like people are trying to downplay the lifestyles of the folks over in Potomac. I have heard several vloggers downplay Karen Hugler's home and sort of make it seem like, this whole Potomac thing is not all it's cracked up to be. It's, not that ritzy and that type of thing. I will tell you that in this region, classic, more traditional styled homes or I guess homes that represent um, certain aspects of history, certain eras of history, and a certain nostalgia. Um, that's what you will see here, and I think it's very deliberate. Whether you are in the DMV, which we call it, that's DC, Maryland, or Virginia, you sort of see these homes that are built on an older style, and rather than looking at that as, oh, these homes are outdated, people in this area actually see that as a sign of prestige. Many of the folks who get homes here want that sort of colonial, older style. They want the grand staircase that some folks might consider outdated. As we saw on this episode of one of the people who visited Karen's home, some people might think that the homes are not as decorated as well because they may be more decorated in a traditional style versus a contemporary style. I will tell you that it just depends on the people and their taste. I mean, there are plenty of townhomes and other people's homes that you would go to here in this area that are also very contemporary too. But what you see is what you get on the Real Housewives of Potomac as far as those individual styles. And I think you do see something more modern when whenever they show the townhome of Robin, and you certainly see very modern, clean lines, upscale, excuse me, home when you see it at Ashley's place. So it's all about preference. Excuse me. It's all about preference, and it's certainly not something to look down upon. I heard a few comments about people looking down on Monique's home, saying her decor was not good, and who has a fish tank in their home. Listen, I love aquariums. It's not about a status symbol or anything like that. But if I could have a really nice saltwater tank in my home with colorful fish in it, I would have that done. And I think having it off a kitchen actually makes sense. Why are people being so critical of Potomac? I have no idea. But I will tell you the value of these properties is tremendous, as you can tell. I mean, Karen can demand $2 million for her home. The value has gone down over time, but that is just part of the temperament of the market. And so it's nothing to sneeze at. And the thing is, you can live in a place like Atlanta. I think there might be some subtle comparison going on here. You can live in a place like Atlanta and live in a $500,000 home or $1 million home, and it would seem like you are in a castle where a $500,000 home is really the norm here. And it's a fairly decent sized place. You may or may not get any yard with it. That's just location, location, location. That's just the way things are. So I wouldn't downplay this area, especially Potomac, Northern Virginia, places like McLean, where the home that Monique and her husband are going to purchase. You certainly don't want to downplay those areas. It's like the Beverly Hills of this area. And then Kensington, Maryland, you can research this. There are more um, wealthy African Americans per capita in Kensington, Maryland than anywhere else in the country. So, what people choose to do with their wealth, how they choose to express their wealth and their lifestyles, it's totally up to them. And if you don't like their style, hey, everybody has their preference. So I wanted to just sort of establish that. Now, having established that, let's start with Karen. Karen is wanting to sell her home, and I'm actually surprised at the way she is going about it. Her home is somewhat dated, and if you want to move your home off the market, one of the main things a realtor will tell you to do is upgrade appliances. That's a norm in real estate. Now, you of course can fold that cost into the cost of the home, but that if it's you have a home that is not moving off the market, if it's stagnating, her realtor was right. That's when people who want to wheel and deal come along and they say, hey, your property's been here for a minute, let's talk. And you think that your property is still worth every bit of what it was when you first put it on the market, but those are factors that will lower your price point. And so if I were Karen, I would stop trying to be snooty and just go ahead and do what I need to do to move that property, because she already said she did not want to have two mortgages, which absolutely makes sense. But at the same time, I think that it's a bit unrealistic for her to expect that she is not going to make any changes. It just is not in anymore to have all white appliances. And actually, her kitchen is not that spacious either. It seems like she has just a bit of an island, a small one. And there are just other aspects of the kitchen that are not appealing. And so you add that with people also saying things like, oh, look at the staircase. It's kind of dated and all that. You want as few drawbacks as possible when you're trying to move. So I think she's a smart lady, but she has to stop being stubborn. Who doesn't want to have an open house? That is such a normal way of marketing in real estate. That just it just makes me wonder sometimes about some of the housewives if the money that they have is just all new money, because their mentality is just doesn't reflect that they know how to wheel and deal in life the way people who are more established do. No offense, Karen, it just doesn't seem to quite pan out right. How resistant you would be to something that's so normal. But I'm glad to see that you and your husband are trying to get into a different space. I think it makes sense. And I think that even if you don't get into a space that is as large and you get into something that is more comfortable, that's what's important. And you can still have a fly place to live. You can still make it beautiful, make it your own, and still be the grand dame. Then let's move on to Ashley. Ashley was somewhat of a focal point of the episode. She has really been trying to let everyone know that Juan Dixon is allegedly cheating on Robin, and she wanted to find out from the other ladies how she should address it with Robin, or if someone like Giselle should address it because she knows Robin. I feel like where we're where we're watching this relationship, and Ashley, she can she's showing something that happens commonly in relationships with women. I think even when you are in a relationship with someone that you're close to, sometimes there's still boundaries. And she wants to have a relationship with Robin where if I'm your friend, I should be able to be honest with you. I should be able to tell you out of love when I feel you're being hurt and I want to protect you. I should be able to do that. Well, some people are not open with the sensitive parts of their relationship being discussed so freely, and certainly not on television. I know that this is a public relationship that Juan and Robin have, but it has to be painful. Robin tries to put up a front as if, hey, I'm just dealing with this as it is, let the chips fall where they may. I know that he still wants to be with me, but I don't want him cheating on me, so I haven't made that decision yet. She goes from that sort of mentality to, well, if Juan is cheating, we're not married. He can date other people. She doesn't say if he's cheating, but she's like, if he's dating. But then you go from there to a radio interview with him to co-promote this summer camp for basketball that you're both a part of. And the radio person has a hard time deciding what title to give Robin. That was so embarrassing. And she said that she has been there for and with him for so long. She cooks for him, she cleans for him, she supports him on these engagements. I think that was probably something that she arranged as a PR person too, because remember, she does PR. So she probably is the reason why they got that spot, that interview spot. But she's so accustomed to just sort of being there. And I almost wanted to say to being used, but I think I understand Robin a little better. It's not so much about being used, but I believe she feels that she helped create the one Dixon that we know. And it's just hard to let that go. And especially under the circumstances of him having lost his parents and her parents stepping in and sort of helping raise him and build him up. It's just a complicated, I believe, situation, but one that Ashley says that she feels, she needs to say something to try to help Robin. And it is difficult when you're only so close to a person when you're broaching a subject that's this sensitive. And then on the other side of this, Ashley is pushing it a little hard. It was so awkward when they were at Monique's spades game and cookout, and Juan was there, and everybody started dancing, and she's like, "Come on, Juan, come dance with Robin," and he sort of shunned her. So I think he was on to her, like, you know what, you're going too far. Why are you like in my business? But that night is when um, it came out more that he might have been cheating and that sort of thing. And then later on, there was an intervention by Giselle and Cherisse. This is where I think the ladies have been their strongest so far this season. And it was apropos because Ashley doesn't quite have that relationship. And the other thing is, Ashley is struggling in her marriage too, so she needs to pay attention to her own home, is what people are telling her. And that is also true. But I feel for her with the level of awkwardness, and she's just trying to show that she cares. But then also it's a little gossipy, so I get both sides of that. But Charisse and Giselle, who were warring with each other at the start of the season, they come together to intervene on behalf of Robin. I believe the way they addressed it was gentle and genuine. They talked to her about focusing on herself, and she really didn't have a plan. She admitted it. But then she wasn't too receptive to what they had to say, though what every point they raised was valid. And they came from a place of love and support. I'm all about the sisterhood, and I think they exemplified sisterhood very well. But Robin, Sharice, she had mainly been listening, and she said, "You know what, Robin, maybe you need to have someone to talk to." And she's saying, "What are you trying to say? I need to get fixed?" That wall, that wall, that wall, that wall. Once someone has that wall up, it's hard to penetrate. And what you have to do is, hey, if they're not receiving you, you can leave the situation alone, pray from a distance, but don't leave that person alone. Just let them know that you're there for them if and when they're comfortable coming forth to talk to you about the issues. And they may never come forth, but they still need to know that you're in their corner. I think that that's what real sisterhood is about, not necessarily about being right and trying to um, push the best outcome, because it ultimately is up to that person. And so I was like, woo, applause, 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 because the negativity between Giselle and Monique has gotten out of control. Giselle gets kicked out of Monique's home because she's with her gay friend and they are talking about the house. But then when Monique addresses it, they are surrounded by Monique's friends who come and tell her what's happening, by the way. But when Monique comes in the house to address it, Giselle is like, oh no, we're just complimenting your beautiful home. She's like, well, if it's a compliment, why are you mumbling it under your breath? Can't you just be all on the open with it? And so she said, you know what? You always seem to have a problem with me. You seem uncomfortable here. If you are, why don't you just leave? And so that's when Giselle ends up leaving, but the other ladies meet her in the parking lot, and they didn't really want her to go. But hey, it's Monique's house. Monique comes out there trying to wheel people back in because they are her guests. But it's just not a good look, Giselle. Not a good look at all. I understand you are on a mission to build your empire on your own with the sweat of your brow, but you are constantly feeding negative energy toward Monique. You're constantly downplaying her and saying that she wouldn't be who she is ultimately without the success and money of her husband. That is so insulting, but it's also a little bigoted or hypocritical, because we all know that you were the first lady and the wife of Jamal Bryant. And no one would truly know your name if it were not for your husband. And really, the support that he gave you, and perhaps continues to give you, it's hard for me to understand why you come off as if you've never had the support of a man. And if you did, what was his was his. That just doesn't tend to be the case with women who are the first ladies of churches, number one. And number two, Jamal Bryant is the type of person who, he seems like he would be responsible for his children or any alimony or anything like that he would need to do. I don't know that, but it is just not a good look for you to act as if you've never had any help from him, because that's what you're implying. Almost like you've never had any help from any man that you would date. But we all know that if you're going to be with somebody, I think you said it before, you're going to need to have a big bank account. And so this just going off on Monique is just showing you as a mean girl. I don't think she's intimidated. I don't think you're intimidated, but this is a schoolgirl antic that has gotten so stale. It's not good for the storyline. If it continues, I believe the viewership will suffer. I certainly am not going to be here for it. If I see it again and again and again, I'm not going to be here for it. Now, what I am here for, moving on to Monique, I am here for Monique and Chris because they are the prototype for this type of show. They are married. They have children, and they have a lifestyle that we can look into to actually see their housewife type status. Everyone cannot claim that, including Giselle, because she's not even married. Cherisse can't claim it any longer. Whatever sort of arrangement Robin has, it's not traditional, but there is a man in the picture. And so we really are interested in Monique, whether Giselle likes it or not. We're interested in the framework of their family. I found it extremely intriguing how many titles their pastor has in their life. They are pastor, BFF, um, the godparents to their children. I'm talking about Monique and her husband. Um, their pastors are the godparents to their children. And the first lady is a realtor. So she is the one who has done the agreement for the home that they are buying, and I believe the price was 4.5 million. Um, but you've got all these titles, and you've got all of these. Let me just say this. I don't think it's wise to have one person occupy so many spaces in your life. It's sort of, I used this analogy before. It's sort of like when you have an electronic device that is multifunctional. And if one aspect of that device malfunctions, the entire thing has to go to the shop. Sometimes you can repair it, sometimes you can't. And so I personally think it's a little bit too close for comfort to have a pastor who's that deep in your life, because sometimes you might just need to kick it with him as your friend, but it's hard for them to get out of that pastoral mode. And I think that that's what we sort of saw. Monique was saying how she wanted to ask them some advice outside of housing. And she was talking about the Giselle situation because it makes her feel uncomfortable. It reminds her of how she feels with her mother in law. And we all saw a few episodes back the strained relationship she has with her mother in law. And she teared up. She just couldn't understand why she was constantly under attack. She doesn't come across to me in the least like a gold digger. She says, "Hey, I am who I am. I didn't ask to marry a man who has all these means, but that's what it is." And she's excited about the new money, and so you can tell that that's the case. But I don't see her as bragging in a way to degrade anyone. I think that she's just happy and blessed. And I think that she wears that blessing well. She and her husband. These are folks who are still playing spades on a regular card table. For goodness sake, where do you see that? Where people are saying, hey, we're not too good to still do that? I heard people complaining that their setup in their backyard wasn't quite, upscale enough. They're being regular. It's refreshing. I love it. I think it's great. I think it's inspirational. I think they are relationship goals. Hashtag relationship goals. And I'm liking it so much. I wish there were more people like Monique and her husband on the other franchises. Oh God, if they could just like clone Monique and her husband for the Real Housewives of Atlanta, then maybe I would be more pro them staying on air, but that's another vlog for excuse me, another day. So I'm completely in support of Monique and how she has a consciousness about her. She wants to do the right thing. But what she was saying to her pastor is how it's really hurtful to her. But then he says to her, and this is that line that I'm talking about. He goes, did you call that lady a trick? He was talking about Giselle. Apparently, he heard Monique. And she said, yeah, I called her that. And so then he goes into this mode of ministering to her and telling her, you got to be humble and you've got to apologize. It was nice to see that ministry moment. But I think that Monique did her part by extending an olive branch to someone who she knew didn't care for her. And of course, we don't want to be adult women calling each other names. But at the same time, I think she did her part. That's where you want him to be your boy and be like, you're wrong for calling her a trick, but not all be ye there without sin. Therefore, you must be humble. It wasn't that, that deep. But I do think that that's part of what the problem could be if you have someone in your life with these layers and layers and layers of relationship. So kudos to Monique and her husband on getting the new home. I can't wait to see it. I think that it's a great property. I'm loving the pool that they have and how they've integrated the nature with it from the little piece that we already saw. So I'm just looking forward to seeing them go into that new home and be happy. I have a tickle in my throat. Forgive me if I have to cough a little bit. But I do want to say that sisterhood is possible. On this show, I think sisterhood is possible. I think there are avenues where they can unify. But it won't happen if you keep crossing the line like Ashley. So, this episode we saw Cherisse have to bring out the shay again. She asked Ashley to come with her to a dress shop because it's about to be social season, charity season, and she needed some new dresses. And since Ashley's done pageants, she wanted her advice. And Ashley just, I don't know, she came in a certain type of mood. And Cherisse just couldn't seem to put on anything that Ashley really liked. I mean, she was just a little condescending. And then she starts saying to Cherisse, you know what? You're always crying. I don't even know how they got into it, but they get into it. And she says, you talk about nothing but your ex-husband and you're always crying. And Cherisse said, oh, no. Cherisse was addressing with her, you kind of need to back off of Robin's business and focus on yourself. And she said, she called her a little girl. And she said, just because I wasn't with someone for 4 years and miserable or something like that doesn't mean I'm a little girl or someone who didn't want to be with me. It was a low blow. Now, I'm saying sisterhood is possible with the exception of this type of behavior. You can't come at someone like that who just gave you a huge opportunity at their daughter's party to expose your restaurant, who's been there to help you. At least in this season, that's all Cherisse has done is try to be a support system for Ashley. And so I don't understand why she would come at her like that. That was totally wrong. That's not what sisters do. And so they exchanged a few verbal blows and they were all low. Cherisse was telling her, you need to worry about having a child with your old husband. And she's telling Cherisse, you know what, whatever. And it just, it got pretty nasty. But that's pretty much sums up what happened in this episode from all of the ladies. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, give me suggestions. This is new to me, and so I'm having fun with it. And like I said, this is actually a pleasurable thing for me because I'm not having to be so serious as I am when I'm doing regular reports. I would like to continue to do these, but I won't if I'm not getting people watching. So please share. Thank you for watching.